Oh my God. Dan the agency man. Welcome to another episode of Agency Life. We have Dan Dela Cruz here. He is what I'm going to call a reformed agency owner. Welcome,
I
Dan.
love that. You're going to
And
have to explain that to me.
I know I'm going to. I'm thinking about opening a home for the bewildered agency people, as I actually have building a retreat in the west of Ireland. So I've been actually following Dan for a very long time, mainly on Instagram. But we've been just talking. He hasn't been posting for a while. So if you check out his account, he's still alive. he's okay. But Dan, you have been. I'm going to read out your resume here. You've spoken to over 3,000 agencies to discover what's the most successful, what they do well, and those who are not successful, they don't do well. And that is the whole core of agency life. So welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. It's sunny here and that's all good. It's nice and cold, which I like as well. I know most people don't, but yeah, there's the weather part.
There's a good. Thank you. You're in the UK. I'm in Dublin, and it is a nice sunny, bright day out there, which is lovely. Dan, I want to take you back on a bit of a history. If you could tell us first before the Agency Collective, and then we want to learn more about that. But tell us about your agency and how you got that started.
Sure. I think also just to give a bit of a heads up and stuff, I'm very passionate about what I do. Sometimes I might swear, and please don't take any offense if I do.
No, we've got that covered. Yeah,
You
no,
can
it's
feel
okay.
free to bleep that out.
We've had a few curse words in agency world. I think we're very good. And then, like, I'm Irish, so you'll hear me. You'll hear me go as well.
Good.
We've covered that in the
takes
podcast.
Offense, I'm just going to say sorry up front. I'll try my best. But also the other thing that I want to say is I'm very one of our values at the Agency Collective, which is this peer support community for agency owners that I run, is being transparent. And I will talk very openly about some of the experiences I've gone through with my agency and before coming about with the Agency Collective, and also maybe some of the stories that I've come across or have been part of as part of the Agency Collective. And some of these things are quite kind of heartfelt stories. I think some of them are ones that probably every agency owner will resonate with, but I just want to give that kind of heads up that I'll be talking very openly about stuff, and yeah, so you'll get the real stuff. It's not.
Well, that's why we want you on the show, Dan.
Hey,
that's exactly what we're looking for.
Is peaches and cream or whatever you call
Excellent,
it.
yeah.
Cool. So my agency. How did I start my agency? So I fell into the agency world after university. So I ran this little side business or hustle, as people call it these days, during university, because I went to uni. I didn't grow up with much money. My parents didn't go to uni, and I think there was a sort of little bit of a we'd like our son to be finally someone that goes to uni in the family and things like that, bring back the degree. And so I went on that journey, and the problem with that was I kind of almost did it because of my parents rather than myself.
Right.
And I just kind of chose a topic that I thought, would be interesting, marketing. And I did this degree in London. And I think within the first few weeks, I was just so bored and thought, you know what, let's do something different. I realized there was this real gap in our course, which was about 500 people. And I said, we have no good events to bring people together within the course. And so I went about and I said, I'm going to organize a first party, because the student union didn't want to support me anything. And I said, I'm just going to do this myself. I asked the lecturers to go and speak after the lectures in front of everyone. And yeah, people loved it. And we started organizing events, and we had topping out at 600-700 people attending the events and stuff. Wow. So it was a really, really successful thing. But I thought I was smart enough and entrepreneurial enough to continue this journey after university. And that was not the truth. That was far from the truth. So I essentially ran out of money and I had to get a job. So I started at an agency called Hugo and Cat, and I started as an account manager there. That was my start journey. And that was a really great experience because it was with a small agency at the time. There were about 10 people or something when I was there. And I gained a lot of experience working really closely with the two founders, who are absolutely brilliant. I think they sold to Interbrand or someone like that a few years ago. They're probably 120 people now. But it's just a really amazing experience for someone coming straight out of uni. The challenge I had though, always, I've been someone who's always been very driven. And whenever I felt an itch, I kind of wanted to do that. But the thing is, when you're employed somewhere, you have to wait sometimes
Yeah.
for your turn. And I couldn't wait. So I was really interested in UX. That was something that I felt really passionate about. And it sort of connected everything that I knew about business, technology, design, and and human beings, right? And that
Yeah.
just really, really interested me, and the research side interested me.
About
But
what
the
year was this? Just giving it like
this
what
was
time
like
frame are we
literally
talking?
probably
Like,
two years out of university,
right.
2.5 years out of university,
So how long ago? 20 years ago? 10 years ago?
yeah, so I'm 35 now. That
Okay.
was, yeah, like probably 12 years
12
ago,
years
roughly,
ago.
right?
Right.
Like
Okay.
we're
So
going that far
2008.
back. Yeah.
2008. Okay, good. I just,
And
just a little history lesson.
absolutely, yeah. And so I thought, you know what? I really want to do this UX thing. And fair play to the guys at Hue and Cat. They gave me the opportunity to do it, but it just wasn't, I didn't feel my learning was fast enough.
Mm.
So I quit my job there. I joined another agency, and that was a little bit of yeah, that was not what I had expected. I think now I came in as like the little cocky little twat who basically thought he knew everything and was like, I can be client services director, I can be MD, I can be this. And eventually I'm like, do you know what, screw everyone, I'm just going to do this myself, right? And so I started freelancing as a UX kind of designer, and that kind of put me on this journey of wanting to see what I can do, because lots of people, I got jobs really easily, but I was like, I'm still working in agencies.
Yep.
Actually, what I want to do is like build an agency, build a team, right? And I met these guys who were this group of companies, and they really got me into everything. And actually, during that time, I was really interested in like startups as well. So I was part of this like podcast show called This Week in Startups with a guy
Right.
called Jason Calacanis. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
come
I've
across him
heard of it.
before.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, and I very early on, and when that started, I was part of this kind of producer fanboy program, basically,
Nice.
and we helped produce the shows, some of the early shows, which was amazing. And that really got me like into the whole mode of entrepreneurship, because I saw like Gary Vaynerchuk in his really early days there, and I saw the founder of Uber when Uber didn't really exist, the founders from Airbnb, like all these things that like were in its infancy, right? And they were all on the show. And so I was like, I want to do this. I'm going to do this agency. And I fell into it, just
Wow.
like 95% of other agency owners do, right?
Yeah,
And I
right.
was like, I'm going to just take the plunge. I'm going to start doing new business selling, which I did. And I started getting work. And then I got more work, and I got more work. And I'm like, oh, I need to hire. And I hired. And then I needed more work and more hiring and more people. And suddenly I was running that agency. And I think that's probably the story that most agency owners go through, rather than
Yeah,
going, there's a really clear need here.
that's right.
Yeah, that's my journey. I know it's a bit of a
I
long-winded
love
one, I
it.
think, but it's quite
Yeah.
important to mention those different stages in the run up to it.
Yeah, and it's there. I've never actually met an agency owner who doesn't A, have an interesting story, or B, have it very accidental as well. Like that whole there's never like I wanted to be 30 people and a 5-year plan that works backwards, right? It's like,
Yeah.
there's none of that goes on. It's always like a snowball and a this and this opportunity and that opportunity. So thanks for sharing that. But how big did the agency
it's
go?
it's it's interesting as well, isn't it? Because I think like your point is really, really quite a good point, and it's something that we try to teach, not teach, but like we try to share through stories from agency owners with the people in our community, with agency owners in our community, which is this whole mentality of thinking more about demand and supply, thinking about market opportunities, thinking about this thing that we do every single day more like a business, and
Yes.
still doing what you love, but actually you are running a business, you are part of what I like to call the game, which is the economy.
Yes.
And we have to adhere to some of the game rules, right? And that means, you look at other industries, the reason there are successful businesses like Tesla and so on, right, is because these people had a vision at the beginning. They saw a really clear opportunity in the market to
Yeah.
disrupt that market, to beat the cash cows that are in there. and then they moved in, right? And
That's right.
that's a very different approach to what most agency owners take, which is where to fall in, basically.
Yeah, and where it's usually running away from something. You've just talked about you were running away were you running towards something? No, and
Well,
that's
I wanted to be
okay.
my own boss,
Yeah,
right?
right, because you
The
didn't
thing
like
that
that and you
everyone
didn't
wants
like
to
that.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I
always
want to do it
the
my way.
right. There's the running away, or they didn't like the corporate job, or they had a breakup from a partnership. So there's the running away, which is fine because that's the compelling moment to change. But as soon as you're in there, that's when you got to make your own vision. You can't have a
Yeah,
reason for a business as I didn't like working for the man. It's like
I totally
that's not
agree.
a business model, you know.
Yeah,
So
and what are your
anyway,
clients are not going to buy into that, are they?
no, they're like, what are you doing? Oh, I didn't like working for the man. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So when you were building your agency, how big did that get?
Yeah,
How long did you manage to
yeah.
hold it together?
Yeah, well, that's you're raising a really good point. How long did I manage that? I mean, I was a terrible entrepreneur. I was a terrible boss. I was a terrible at everything. The only thing I was good at was doing new business. So I knew how to talk, but not walk the walk, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we would bring in some really great clients. We worked with people like Jamie Oliver, for example. But the delivery side of things was just awful. And then we got it was probably around seven people in total. So it wasn't a massive thing. I had loads of
Right.
freelancers as well, partnered up with companies, but essentially enough for it to be something that I just got myself into that I didn't know what I was really doing,
Yeah.
essentially. And I just went like, okay, I need to. Well, essentially the thing is, and the reason why I mentioned this thing at the beginning around I didn't come from money, I think that was a really important part of that experience of running my agency, because what had happened is that as a result of me suddenly earning money and earning more than probably was good for my own sanity,
Mm.
I went a bit off the tracks. I kind of thought, oh wow, like I can buy stuff with this. I can go out to clubs. I can go and buy stupid things. I can go on lavish holidays and all these things, and all the money, all the profit really in the business went back into my pockets, and even to the detriment of taxes.
Wow.
Where there were moments where I had real issues with taxes, and I don't know if I can be held accountable to this still, but moments where I did really stupid things with taxes as well as a result of that,
Mm.
and that was me being a real fat cat, and I think that was ultimately the downfall of my agency. I just stripped every penny out of the business, and it was
Right.
just not. It was just not sustainable, and to the detriment of the business, to the detriment of all the people that were working with me, and so I got to this point where it just got so bad, and I was like, and my passion was just gone, because all it was all about in the end was like money and problems with money and problems with getting new business in, and it just got to a point where I was just like, I'm cycling more than I'm actually in the business
Yeah.
doing what I need to do, which is to fix this problem.
Yeah.
So I let quite a few people go, and then I shrank down, and then I was like, I don't know if I really want to continue this, and so there came this moment where I was just like, I need to make a decision now. And my ex-wife, who we had a kid with as well, just in that sort of same period of time, all the pressure was mounting on that side of things. It was a discussion with her as well, around how we're going to continue this. This doesn't work, and so there was just a lot of big life decisions that had to be made, and yeah, the decision and then was, I'm gonna need to close this. I
You're going to
have
need
to
to
call it
close this. Yeah.
a day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just it's something I'd love to tip on as well, because you can speak now from the outside, but an experience that I'm going through and have learned in the last 3 years working more closely with agencies in the business side of things is that feeling of having to work with employees and having the responsibility of what they need, the demands of what they need. You're talking about 7 people, which isn't a lot, but it's way more if you're not good at that space. Talk to me a bit more, because I could feel that was an impact. The weight of wages, the eyeballs looking at you in the office, things are going down, but you've got to go in and front up. Can you go into a little bit more about that? Because I feel you're going to be more open than a lot of guys who are in there right now with this pressure.
So I'm gonna kind of go and talk about this from two different perspectives, and one is the employer perspective and one is the employee perspective, because I think the context needs to come from both parts. I would be lying if I would say that when I ran my agency, I was all about culture. I was all about let's create an environment where people flourish and developing the careers. I did not give a shit, right? Like, to be totally frank, like, I mean, I was just like, do you know what? You're not doing your work. You're not doing your job. I don't think you're right. Full stop. You know, that's it. There was no like ownership taken from my side to trying to develop human beings and make them better. It was a chair, it was a computer, and you know, that's it. Basically.
Get in, get on.
Exactly. And so I think that's a very different mindset I have now in the business that I'm running now, and that I think that from a employee point of view is a really important one for us as owners of businesses to not forget. You know, these are human beings,
yes,
like, you know, people that have their lives, that have, you know, things going on in their life that we need to be respectful of in every way that we can. I don't think there's such a thing as like a person is bigger than the mission, but we need to make sure that we try to integrate that person into the mission as much as possible, right? Like, that's always my take on it. And the reason why I mean that is there's a great book I read the other day called Extreme Ownership, which is by these kind of Navy SEALs guys, and they talk about this example of where they consulted at a company where the owner of the business was really good friends with a board member, and he couldn't he couldn't kind of drum up the courage to let this person go because he was a friend, but actually he was just completely underperforming, and it was having a massive impact on the rest of the team. And you know, and whoever's read Radical Candor, you know, you actually show no care whatsoever if you're not going to do that move, and help the person through that, actually, because you're doing no one favors. You're not doing your friend a favor, you're not doing the company a favor, nor yourself. But going back to my point, I think it's really important to always bear that in mind. As an owner, it's our responsibility to have good relationships with as many people as possible in our team, and help them evolve in whatever way they want to evolve and whatever way they want to need to. And hopefully it will always be in line with how the business evolves.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important thing to say up front, right? Yeah. Now, the other side of that is the owner's perspective. I totally get it. You know, you as an owner, you're sat there, even if you've got business partners, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing whether you're on your own or with your business partners. You have 5, 10, 15, 50, 100, 1,000, however many team members you have. Everyone wants to come to you with their problems, right? Yeah. Everyone wants to share and load off everything on you. And everyone has a need. Everyone goes, oh, I want to go off and do this, or I've got this coming up, or I have this problem in my life. The next person says the same thing. The next person says the same thing. They don't realize that you're having the same conversations with every single person, because they're just looking at it from their perspective, and they can't see it any different. And I don't blame them, because they've not been, especially if they've not been in that position before, they can only see it from their perspective. This is my life. Why can't you understand that I've got problems in my life, right? And it's like, you're not the only one. There's 10 other people I'm talking to right now who have problems, right? Yeah. And I think as a result of that, sometimes as an owner, we can quite quickly fall into this hole where we do so much for everyone else, but then forget ourselves. And I think that's a really, really hard place to be in, and sometimes a very dark place to be in. And unfortunately, has also been the cause of a couple of suicides that I've experienced in the last.
I know. I remember you. Yeah, I remember you writing about those. I think I wrote back to you last year, but it was really affected by it. Yeah, it can get so dark, because also you're having those conversations in the office, and then it comes time to go home, and you go home, and there's another set of problems at home. Yeah. And there is nowhere for these, mainly men, to go, you know, and I really feel that. What advice do you give someone who's in that situation, who's got their setup like that? How do you help? What sort of things do you talk to agencies about to get out of that cycle, to break that cycle, to change it?
Absolutely. I think, I don't want to plug the agency collective in this, because it's only one of many things that you can do.
Yeah.
I think there's a level of like, you kind of almost have to have a really close friend evaluate you and be able to tell you the truth and tell you how bad the
Yes.
situation is,
Yeah.
so that you can decide on what route you're going to go, right? Are you going to go into real professional help and work with a psychologist, which is one thing. I did that last year, not so much because of the business, but I had a quite a bad breakup with someone, and it really knocked my confidence. And I'm usually someone who's like super confident, and that was like the first time in a very long time I was so low, feeling so low, and I was like, this is not me. I need some help. I definitely need some help. So I went through that process of working with psychologists, which helped massively, but it required also a lot of like really ripping parts out of the deep of my insides and going, this is hard, this is difficult to like face these dark places, right? But I came out of that, and I've been in a much better position. And I'm not someone who likes to then go on and keep like opening up the can of worms more and more, because I think you can get to a point where it just becomes an endless cycle of opening up stuff that you probably can't even fix anymore about your past, right? So I definitely, like, that would be one route. Another route is, if it's not as severe, but it's something maybe just, again, like, I think generally communities where there's other agency owners. So yes, the agency collective is one option. There's things like agency hackers. I think there's the guys at Agencynomics do stuff. There's loads of like trade bodies, BEMA, and the whole lot. I mean, there's so many organizations out there that have like communities essentially where other agency owners hang out. And the thing is, you're not alone, right? Like, other agency owners know exactly those challenges. And I think the most important thing is, if you go through that, make sure you choose a community where the values are also supporting that kind of openness, because there's nothing worse than you going into a room where someone is like doing really, really well and you're doing really, really badly, and then you're approaching, they're going, but we don't have these problems. It's like, but I have a problem. Like, you want to be able to have that person that's doing well actually go, look, hey, here's my arm around your shoulder. Let me just talk you through that. When we went through that a couple of years ago, this is what happened, and we resolved it this way, and it's going to be fine. It's going to be okay, right? And I think that's a really important point to make, because when I closed my agency, I was in real financial debt, like real problems, and I luckily had a good friend who was through a contact of my ex-partners, and he basically said, look, if you want someone to live, to rebuild your house, I've got this house out in Kent and no one lives in it. I don't want anyone to live there because there's a lot of personal stuff in there. Go there, tell me how much rent you want to pay, and rebuild your life, right?
Amazing.
So that was amazing. Like, guardian angel saved us, basically, right? So that's incredible. So make sure you build up a real, like, strong support network. The second thing was, when I then went through that process, I sort of looked at my situation and I went, like, it's not that bad.
Right. Yeah.
It's actually not that bad. Yeah, okay, I failed at a business. So what?
So
A few people will go, well, we told you shouldn't have done that, especially ones that never took the risk before, right? They're all like, well, we told you shouldn't have taken the risk. And it's like, have you ever done anything risky? No. So, whatever. Don't care what other people think, right? And then the other thing is, I looked at myself and I went, I'm healthy.
Yep. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears.
I've got everything.
Yeah.
I've got food. I've got I've got enough money for water and food. I've got a shelter. And in modern society as well, relationships. So, I basically, I think all we really need is a roof over the head, water, and bread.
Gratitude as well. Like, you obviously, and you were obviously grateful for those things so that you could identify, to come from the dark areas. Before we move, I want to explore a bit more of that, but I just want to touch back on, you've given some solutions there about speaking to someone, about the collectives, about going out into the community, and that. I'm going to say tactically, I am going to give advice on tactically. What I have noticed every time I go into an agency is that there is no people manager. And I have yet to meet an
Yes.
agency owner who loves HR. I've not met one yet. I've met hundreds of them, and they love what they do, and they're an entrepreneur, but they need to have a people manager. So if you've got about 6 to 8 to 10 people in the business, you need someone to do the one-to-ones, the holidays, the chats, the problems, and you factor that in through the profit of the business, because you'll get more out of your team if your utilization rate can increase. Even if you just pop it up by another 5%, you get a productive team that can afford a people manager. And that way, all the problems will go to the people manager. And then you've got the one person coming to you with problems, not 8.
Yeah, I totally agree. So there's a magic number which I call the magic number. I don't know if it's that. And, a lot of agencies that I've come across hit that number, and it just turns into mayhem at their agency. And it's usually around 15 people, and you know, you can compare this to different companies, but like in the agency world, it's just what I've seen. You know, other companies like the big. Yeah, well, let's focus on agencies. So 15 is typically the number that I see when actually the agency owner just can't deal with more people at
That's
once,
right.
and that's usually the point where you're absolutely right. You either bring in a people manager, or you bring in you promote someone from within to be more
Yep.
senior that then oversees the whole thing, or you split it up with your co-founder if you've got a co-founder, and go, do you know what, actually you do a bit more operations, I go out and do more new
Yep.
business. Or you hire from externally, right? But like definitely the 15 team member number is quite a common number that I see. We're roughly around that range. And I love it always when people are like, I don't want to I don't want to grow a big agency. And then I go, well, how many, like, what does that mean? Give me an idea. And they're
Yeah.
like, you know, not bigger than like 12 or 15. And I'm like, are you
Yeah.
nuts? Like, that's the worst. Like, you're
Yep.
you're better off just being 2, or even on your own, right?
Yes.
If you really don't want the stress of
Yeah.
people management. So I totally agree with you. I
Yeah.
totally agree. Yeah.
And it's as well, it's what they forget as well. It's like, you're not hiring 15 entrepreneurs who work day and night, who solve problems on their own, who don't need a career path, who don't give a damn if they have a holiday or not, who will bypass family responsibilities to work instead. That's not the type of people you've brought into the business. And well, I hope not, because it'd be mayhem, because that's
Yeah.
what entrepreneurs, agency owners do. They just are such a different mindset. So it's 15 different types of personalities and different needs and different wants, and need all that structure. So yeah, it's very interesting. So I hope that helps. If anyone's sitting out there and they're going into their office in the morning and they're going, how many problems am I going to hear today? Well, there's plenty of different ways out of it. So we've given you some solutions there. But
I like that, by the way. Just
yeah.
sorry to just
No,
add
it's
one
okay.
more thing. I like what you just mentioned as well. Like, what, you know, that would be mayhem to have like 15 entrepreneurs. And I totally agree. And I always love taking like real, I guess, almost like raw examples of people in history that have done things and then have given advice. So I'm a big fan of Sir Randolph Fiennes, and I saw him do a talk. I think it was last year. Yeah, it was last year, here in the local town where I live. And you know, the man is just phenomenal. I mean, he's done some incredible things. He's overcome some things. I mean, even like to the point where, you know, he basically sawed off both of his thumbs because he had frostbite, and it was, you know, the doctor said he needs to just wait, and he was like, it's just too painful, so he just went to the
Oh
shed and
my
just sawed
God.
off his thumbs. So like, I mean, the guy's just incredible. But one of the tips in his book, which I absolutely love, and he's got this, like, for every expedition that he did, he wrote like, these are the 10 things that I've learned from the expedition. And he said, you know, have a good balance between people who are like chefs or cooks and those who work in the kitchen, kind of thing. And it's just
Awesome.
like a really simple analogy. And I really love that. And again, in the Radical Candor book that I mentioned, Kim, she mentions that also in that book, where she talks about rock stars and superstars,
Yes.
or rising stars, superstars, something like that.
Yes.
Where superstars are the ones that want to grow within a company, want to, like, you know, move up and become like the CEOs and whatever. And then there's loads of people that are actually really quite happy just being a solid rock.
Totally.
and they're really important for the business as well. And I guess
Absolutely.
having that balance between both is really, really key.
Yeah, very much a very key thing to do. So we'll take you a little bit step back. Then I want to go. You're in Kent. You're in the borrowed house. You're going through the darkness. What happened
Yeah.
next, and how did you get yourself out? Is that where the Agency Collective was born, or was there a step before that?
Yeah. So this is really interesting. So I'm not one of the original founders, say that up front, of the Agency Collective. The Agency Collective was originally founded it was a joint venture between two companies, a company called Cactus and a company called the Wow Company.
Oh, Spencer.
The Wow
Yeah, I
Company
know.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So Spencer, who runs Cactus, is a management consultancy firm for agencies, and then we have the Wow Company, that's an accountancy firm for agencies. And they came together and they wanted to help the smaller agencies, the agencies that would constantly come up to them and go, hey, how do you do this? How do you do finance? How do you do new business and all these sort of things? And they want to just have like an environment where they can sort of just share their knowledge en masse, really. And they founded the Agency Collective probably a year and a half, roughly, before I came on board.
Right.
It was a side project for them. So they and funny enough, I had experienced the Agency Collective in the kind of sort of really last stages of my agency.
Oh, right. So you came
And
across them there. Cool.
exactly. So I had an experience as a member, which was just perfect, right? Because I knew it from that side, and I then had the kind of experience of the agency side of things. So Spencer and Pete, they spoke to me, and basically just thought, or said to me, we're looking for someone to head up this thing that we're running called the Agency Collective. I think you know it. You've been to an event before. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely amazing. So I went through this like 5-year planning thing, and thanks to a good friend of mine, Adrian Lomas, from an agency called Blue Leaf, who was absolutely phenomenal during that time. Like, he was there so close to me, supporting me, giving me tips. Like, I met up with him and just said, I don't know, what do I do next? And he went, look, put up loads of post-it notes on the wall. So I had this massive wall, really, really big wall, and I just put loads of post-it notes up. And I basically had like structured in columns by year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. And then I think I had like a categorization of fame, fun, fortune. And I used that as kind of like a
Nice.
way. And there's loads of other models that you can have. I use one in a talk that I'm doing soon, which is called Itika, Japanese kind of like
Oh, yeah. Ichigaya.
reason for Itikaya,
Yes.
yeah, reason
Yeah.
for being, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you can use all kinds of models for this sort of stuff, but it really helped me to take a step back. And then I looked at, where do I want to be in 5 years' time? What are the things I want to do? What are the things that are important to me? And I had loads of ideas for things that I wanted to do. And the Agency Collective came up as an opportunity. So I put it up on there, and I weighed it out against all the other things. And eventually I just started having more and more conversations about it. And I'm like, actually, do you know what? This is really what I want to do.
Amazing.
I just want to be there every single day, helping agency owners, helping them not do the same mistakes that I did.
Yeah.
And just, seeing people that are so talented, creatively, technically,
Yeah.
to have these, like, actually quite, like, now that I've got the knowledge, like having taken a step back, quite minuscule, like, business problems that with one little tweak will make such a massive difference to the business, but them not being able to see it because they're so good at their core skill, right? They're a designer, they're a developer, they're a copywriter, they're a marketeer, but like running a business, the finance side, operations, the leadership, the management, the recruitment, HR, all these things, no idea. And so, yeah, I just said, yes, I'll do it.
Amazing. So talk to me then, if I'm sitting here and I'm going, who is the Agency Collective? What are they doing? Describe what the type of community is and how does it run?
Yeah, sure. So our North Star of the business is very simple, very easy to understand, very relatable for agency owners. We want to be the best peer support community for agency owners in the world.
Amazing.
That's what we are. So as an agency owner, if you're looking for support on how to solve problems in your business, right? Maybe you want to know how other agency owners do their new business, or you want to understand how other agency owners charge, or you want to know how what tools they use, what CRM systems they use, or you come up with complete other things where like you might have just lost a pitch and you just want like moral support, or you want to understand what you may have done wrong. And has anyone else gone through this situation before? How do you get, has anyone done any tenders before? Or I mean, there's so many things. I could pick like a million topics from our Slack group,
Yes.
where you can just see how amazing the support is from the community, just going, yeah, we've gone through that. We went through that last year. So that's the kind of core part of it, basically. And then the other element of that as well is, we have a lot of specialist agencies within the agency collective. And I think when you're sort of sub £5 million turnover, and we have a couple of agencies that are above that, but not that many. I think majority of our agencies below £5 million turnover. When you're on the smaller side of agencies, basically you ideally go into a niche and then you partner up with other agencies, deliver the wider spectrum of that, right? Whether it's in an industry, you can then use a spread of skills, or you have a specific skill that then is complementary to another skill. So an SEO agency might be complementary to a PPC agency.
Amazing.
And so, so there's a lot of opportunities as well that come up from people just end up working together and actually, gaining work as a result of that as well.
Yeah. And then there's physical events.
There's events. We run events. We've got a Slack group where we communicate. We have content. We've got a content library. So all of our videos of past presentations, talks that we've done with clients, with experts, with new business experts, with finance experts, with all sorts of people, but always like really genuine like stuff, really
tactical, practical. I've seen the topic.
Exactly.
Real
Yeah. We brought in
hands-on.
Blair Enns last year for pricing creativity. That was amazing. And just always just trying to bring in people that are like, just like make you walk out of an event and something and think differently about your business and go, well, I'm going to try that tomorrow. Let's do that.
And hang out with other agency owners as well, which is also a really good thing. So you've talked, so the number 3,000, we use that 3,000 agencies over the last, would say 8-10 years or however long it is. What do you think are some of the common sort of mistakes that you're kind of seeing, that we could just go, like maybe the top 3 things that you're just seeing across the board that is like you would almost go, this is what I'm seeing over and over again with agencies?
Yeah. So there's probably, there's a couple of more kind of fundamental things. Like if I really simplify it, because one, I want to put a caveat on this, like different stages of agency growth have different problems with them. And
that's right.
And we always see that really clearly in the agency collective, because sometimes we do an event where some people walk out of that event going, wow, that was so useful for me. And then others go, yeah, but they're like slightly ahead of us. Like that just is not the problem we have right now. We've got a much simpler problem. So I want to try to kind of boil it down to some of the more simple things. So, there's this whole thing around hustle porn, as they call it, right? And I think, there's an element in that where I'm hoping that every person that sort of exposes themselves to that type of content is aware of their own capability in some way, and is not putting themselves under pressure as a result of that. I think that's a really important thing to say. And again, going back to my analogy or my base principle of saying actually all we need in life is really just water, bread, and a roof over the head. Like all of this stuff doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. Like like you can work as hard as you want if you want to. You can work as little as you want if you want to. You can live somewhere on an island if you want to. You can live in the city if you want to, right? Like that's life. Like you can make like any decision, whatever you want to do. It's up to you, right? This is the amazing thing about life. Within the realms of laws, obviously, but and hopefully morals as well for some people, probably a problem. But generally speaking, we're quite free to do what we want to do. And I think sometimes agency owners can get hung up in this position where they feel like they have to do stuff, and that hinders them from doing the stuff that they actually almost can be doing. And I think what I mean by that, by like real examples of that as well, is, you know, sometimes you can't do everything at once. And I think sometimes you just have to prioritize. And you know what? Sometimes here's my hustle point. Sometimes you're just gonna have to work a little bit harder.
Yes.
And again, you don't have to. Yeah, maybe have to is the wrong thing, but the calculation is quite simple, right? I think it's the same. Like I've done a lot of sports in my life, and I've always like exposed myself quite a lot to the whole concepts around weight loss and, you know, all the sort of things. And it's really simple, right? It's like the more calories you burn, you basically lose weight, right? Like less calorie intake than what you burn a day, you lose weight. That's how it works. It's a really simple formula. And I'm going to really simplify this now with work as well. It kind of is the same thing with work. You know, the more you work, I'm not saying effectively necessarily, right?
Yeah,
like
smarter.
I'm just saying the more you work generally will also lead to more results.
Smart
right?
work. Yes.
However, smart work is one thing, but the second thing as well, I think you have to be careful with that as well, right? Because the thing is, the reason why I'm saying that is because one of the things, and this all sounds very, very kind of like the opposite to the whole mental health thing and everything. I'm totally supportive of that. I'm really, really supportive of that. But what I'm trying to say is basically, I often see people using the whole hustle porn thing and like working too hard as an excuse to actually do far less than you need to make the thing happen.
Right.
And I don't mean that to the detriment of like things that are maybe more important in your life, like for example, maybe you've got family that you want to be more with, but I'm saying to the point where you're almost like procrastinating.
Got it.
And that's a really big thing amongst a lot of agency owners that I know. And I don't know whether it's because it's a creative thing, you know, as a creative, your mind wanders off into various different areas. And but there is this thing where I speak to a lot of agency owners that go like, oh, I've got problems with new business. And I go, okay, what are you doing? Oh, we kind of want to do this. We kind of want to do that. We want to do this. We want to do that. Okay, why are you not doing it? We've got to do this and this and this. And it's like, but you just said that's your problem. That's your biggest problem right now. So what's the thing? I don't know. And then when you dig deeper, they're procrastinating often. Procrastinating on like, exactly. They're afraid of maybe things like rejection or stuff that then causes them to like
or
feel
it might not work. Yeah, might not work. They might make 100 phone calls and not get anything.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the fear.
Exactly. And that leads all to this ever like ongoing cycle of procrastination. And I think probably the number one thing that I've learned amongst agency owners is that the danger of that being in that zone.
Yeah.
And it all leads back to the thing that I'm saying. We don't need much.
Yeah, you don't.
Water,
no, you don't.
Bread,
exactly.
And we need a roof over the head. And when you've got that realization, actually, what's the worst that can happen if you try it? You know, just do.
I love it. Yeah, that's really cool. So on that's the one side. I'd love to hear what you are as we come to sort of the end here. I'd love to hear what you are excited about for the opportunities. What are you looking forward to for the agency community, and what opportunities do you see for them over the next 2, 3, 5 years?
So I'm a big believer of focus and specialization in the agency world. I'm just launching a podcast in a couple of days actually. Yeah. So it's going to be called Say No. And it's just a little plug there. And it's
Thank you. I'll keep going. That's good.
Experiencing loads of great conversations with agency owners who are really deep specialists essentially. And there's some phenomenal people on there. And talk about how they've gone through that process and how that's benefited them as an agency. Because ultimately, for the smaller agencies, again, kind of sub £5 million turnover, having a specialism just helps focus and helps align things. It also allows you to actually do more of the stuff that maybe you want to do outside your agency life, because do you know what? You're not wasting a time going to networking again. That's like where you walk around going, you know what? Anyone that I spoke to tonight was not relevant to me because well, who is relevant to you, right? So I think over the next few years, there is going to be a lot more focus around specialisms
Hmm.
and more kind of smaller agencies that are like getting together and
Yeah.
working together in like collaborations to then kind of break the big, you know,
Hmm.
network agency model. I think the big network agency models, agencies are still going to continue to swallow up those agencies because,
Hmm.
you know, there's always times in life when those deals are too lucrative to turn down for some agency
True.
owners.
Yep. You have to take
Um,
them. Yep.
and if you want to do the next thing in your life, that's as well the thing. But I think that's where the real opportunity lies at the moment for agencies to really think about, like, why do they exist? Why do they exist? What are they going to do? I think that's one thing. You know, the whole aspect around sustainability is a massive thing right now. You know, I think there's so much more to come in that space. Actually, a lot of agencies that we see joining the agency collective at the moment have all some sort of like purpose in terms of
Yeah.
helping the environment, helping society in certain ways. And there's definitely there's definitely a movement there, and I don't think it's just a movement that will just go away. I think it's just a general shift in mindset of doing business. And since creative people do like to come up with new things and challenge status quo, I think there's going to be a lot more of that. And you can see that in other businesses as well, right? Like, you know, like Tesla has just been insane at the moment, right?
I
Like in terms of
know.
their share price.
I know.
And you can just see how I can just imagine so many people who actually don't have any clue around investment are just putting in their money into it because they're going, do you know what? We just love the fact that these people are like breaking all those old, like, you know, Fords and General Motors and stuff like that. Those people that are wanting to pollute the world with their cars, and they're trying to create this new solution.
Right.
So, you know, that's a massive marketing opportunity for Tesla. So like, yeah, I think there's a lot more to come for agencies around that whole side, and I'd
Yeah.
encourage all agencies to have a think about how to do that more and how to get involved more in that side
Yeah.
of it.
And what's satisfying work? You know, if you're, imagine you have a team of people that you love working with who are doing good, with companies that are doing good, you know, and to use the line from Silicon Valley, to make the world a better place.
Love it,
I don't,
absolutely
have
love
you
it.
seen that show? It's like
Yeah,
one of my favorites. But you know, why not? Do you know, it's
yeah,
your, at the
absolutely.
end of the day, I always say this to agency owners, it's like you could wake up in the morning and go and get a job. Now you have the skills, whether you'll be able to keep the job is another thing. Because,
Yeah,
you know, but the reality is you've chosen this life, so you may as well make, you know, the office the color that you want, the people that you want, the businesses that you want to, you can make it your own, like, thing, you know, so
I
why
agree.
not? It's
Yeah,
really
I
cool.
agree. And
Yeah, super.
if you find a market that has a demand for that, amazing, right?
I know, and
I
that you
think
like them and you love
exactly,
talking to them, and
exactly,
that's your life. Why
exactly,
not? You could be
exactly.
playing golf with them, going to the rugby with them, socializing with them, going
Yeah,
hiking up mountains with them. Who knows, you
yeah,
know, where it could go.
exactly.
Now,
Yeah.
speaking of hiking up mountains, because that's where I see you, I've seen you the last time when you were in, you mentioned Colombia, and you've actually brought something up. Like, I always ask people to talk about, you know, work-life balance and things that
Yeah,
help in the business. And we've talked about this. It's coming up over and over again about the importance of agency owners having a hobby, you know,
yeah.
having that balance. Please take the time to be on your own, to go and do something for yourself, like, you know, how important it is. But I'd love you to tell us about one of the things that you did out of your comfort zone and the impact that had. But tell me about the boxing.
Okay, so can I just put a caveat out there, right? Like, I think I'm a really bad example of what most people in their minds have like as a work-life balance. I'm this type of person that, you know, I've again, like, alert, I'm opening stuff up about my life, but like, I grew up in quite a chaos environment.
Mm,
You know, there was a lot of violence at home, and I think I went to like 4 different kindergartens because I was violent and kicked out of schools constantly, and got into problems with drugs really early on. You know, I did my first line of coke when I was about 13, and
wow.
like just really
Mm,
like just always in chaos, always in a state of chaos. And I think one of the reasons, so I grew up in Germany, and one of the reasons why I moved away from Germany to come to the UK was to try to get away from that as far as possible. And I did have this massive turnaround when I was about 16, 17. And I think that's always kind of driven me in some way to always try to push myself out of my comfort zone. And I don't know, it's almost like a can of worms that I'm kind of, maybe I'll open one day, maybe I won't. But I'm never really, I don't question it too deep, because I'm just like, do you know what? I love life so much. I love the fact that I'm like fully physically capable and fully mentally capable. And I just really love seeing how far I can take my body and my mind. That's like a real, that's just like, that just excites me. That's like,
Yes.
what can I do? And actually one of the things you mentioned about Instagram, like one of the reasons I sort of came off Instagram was because I realized actually I was mostly only posting because I wanted the attention. And as soon as that kind of, I put that thing aside, I realized actually the thing, I don't need to tell people that I've just run, 20 miles, or did a
Yeah.
5K in under 18 minutes, right? Like I don't need, I'm told now, but like,
Yeah.
but like, I don't need to tell people that anymore. It's, for me, it's more about challenging myself and going, what is if I did this? How far could I do this, right? Like how far could I push that? And that's kind of the thing that keeps me going and keeps me from actually, almost like I'm burning myself out, but I'm not, because I'm doing
Yes.
something that I'm enjoying. So
Yeah, you're channeling it. It's the same energy. You could choose to channel it by going, can I go on a 48-hour bender for the weekend with the lads? I can, but I can also do this.
Yeah.
This health challenge. I get it. Yeah.
Exactly. And actually, do you know what? Don't get me wrong. I like, I'll have events with our members and stuff, and I'll be out to like 3, 4 a.m. or something drinking.
Yeah.
But I will get up at 6 and do my 12K run, right? But like that's just like the way I am. Like I just enjoy being, because I'm always like, do you know what? I've got time tomorrow to sleep. I've got time tomorrow to sleep. Oh, I've got more time tomorrow to sleep. But I really just enjoy, I just enjoy challenging myself. And I think there's a thing when you step out of the comfort zone, out of those moments of where your mind is telling you, you can't do this. Or actually the worst thing is when your mind says, you don't have to do this. Like that's a really tough decision you need to make for yourself, and go, I know I don't have to, but I will. And some people, they like breaking that barriers and others don't. And I think you have to kind of find where your limits are. I think for me, anytime I've broken that barrier, I've always come out of that with like a real like enlightenment, and I've gone, wow, if I can do that, what else can I do? Like, and so that's always just been, that's always been my driver kind of thing.
You're channeling it in a different way. So you did just tell us about the boxing and then I want to hear about what's on the net, because there must be another one on the radar.
There are a couple of things.
I knew there is,
yeah. I've got a whole
apart
list
from the new
actually.
podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So so there's a couple like with the boxing, basically. The boxing started out of a situation where I went. I was in a relationship with someone who was a bit depressed, quite severely actually, and I thought it would help this person to do some particular sporting activity like boxing. And a friend of hers who was around quite a lot, used to box, but he also had issues with alcohol consumption and so on. And I just thought, what, it would be great to get us three, like, let's just do this. Yay, the fixer, right?
Right.
And so he suggested going to this gym that was around the corner of her house. And I went, you guys going? Nah. Second time I went, they went, nah. Third time, like, nah, no one. And basically I just didn't end up going. And, and I kind of learned from all those experiences as well. I don't have to be a fixer for things. Like that was a really big learning for me actually. But I just really loved it. I just really enjoyed it. I was like, wow, this is different. This is different. It's different when you step into the ring and you get punched in the nose. Like, you realize you're actually not as good as you think you are. Like, you have like a real like confidence check, like a real reality check. And you have, you step in, you have to go, right? Now, and I'm going to put a caveat on this for all of you anti-violence people, right? Like, I am also anti-violence, right? I know that sounds a bit hypocritical, but I guess we're, both people that step into that ring with the same idea in their mind, going, we both know we're stepping into this because we're going to have a brawl, right?
Consent,
and
yeah.
it's a lot more love and war than it is war. More love than it is actually war, because afterwards you always hug and it's all fine, and all that stuff you see on TV is all like PR stuff when they do their press shows and stuff. Like, yeah, right. They actually go afterwards and split the money. So I did my first boxing match last October, which I again had a really good learning from, generally about life. So I did that. That was really exciting. It was a draw in the end. I thought, well, I'd clearly won the first round. I thought I won the second round. So in the third round, I sort of took a notch back.
Mm-hmm.
And fair play to my opponent. He came out all guns blazing, wanted to win it. And he did win the third round, clearly. So they ended up giving us a draw. Now, for me, a draw is a loss, right? Like, that's my competitive side.
I was going to say, how did you handle that?
Yeah, so I was a bit disappointed, but I was not disappointed with the ref. I was not disappointed with the judges. I was not disappointed with the other fighter. I was only disappointed in myself, because I went, well, that was my fault. I went into that third round thinking I had won it, and I didn't. And actually, all of the training of the 12 months that I had been doing up to that fight was all about going, reality checks, going, actually, you're not as good. You're not winning yet. You have to keep going, right? You have to keep going. You can't step into the ring and then step back out again. Once you're in there, you're in there.
That's it.
That's it. You've got to go. You've got to go for it,
yeah,
right?
You got to keep going.
And so I took that as like a massive life learning to go, you know what? Even if you think you're winning, just look around and just make sure that, like, you're probably going to have to just give it a little bit more just to keep the momentum. And so my next one is in June.
Oh, you're going back in the ring again. Oh,
yeah,
right.
It's going to be in York Hall. I'm also looking at getting carded for amateur, so I might do one more. That's on the agenda. I'd like to do you know the SAS Who Dares Wins program?
No, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, so it's this program on TV. I don't have a TV, but I know about it,
right.
because I'm into that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like a basically the Navy SEALs and the SAS and stuff, they do like this thing called Hell Week, where essentially you're like, you're just pushed beyond limits.
I've heard of it. Like, yes, I've heard of that part.
Yeah. And so they do that on TV with a bunch of contestants and stuff like that, take part of it. Now, I'm not going to be taking part in that. Well, I don't know if I can do or not, but I'm not applying for that. But there is a program that they do like separately on like a weekend that you can take part in. So that's one of the things I'd like to do this year. I'm also getting more and more into like bushcraft and things like that, because I just love being out in nature. So I want to do the whole Bear Grylls thing.
Bear Grylls.
Just be
eat
out
off
for
the
a
land.
Weekend. Yes,
I'm telling you, the way things are going, I have a field in my property at home, and the way I know I'm going to be growing my own food, because the way things are going, we need to grow our own food. We're going to need to eat off the land.
Absolutely.
It's going to end up like that.
I'm getting prepared.
Yeah, we've got to.
I don't mean to be a doomsday
I know
prophet here, but I just love that whole season. I love nature. I love being, I've learned something as well over the last few years, that I really enjoy being by myself. Like I get a lot of energy from being by myself, much more than being around people.
Nice.
And just being out in like the silence in a forest and stuff, and it's just like the thought of that's just amazing. I love that.
Amazing,
so I'm going to do that this year, like and I'm gradually going to build up to not taking anything else but water. So
but you've got to live off the land and do the Russian roulette, going, will this berry, how will it go?
Exactly. So,
Dan,
so hopefully I'm still alive by 2021.
Please don't eat anything wrong. We've got much good work to do. Dan, I really, really appreciate you being on this with me. Thank you so much. What is the best way for people, if they're like curious to learn more, what's the best way to get in touch with you and the website for Agency Collective?
Absolutely. So most people know me by my nickname, Dan the Agency Man. If you search for that online on Google, you'll probably find loads of things like my Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. So definitely follow me on there. On LinkedIn, I usually post quite a lot of stuff for agency tips and so on, and you can get that. You can also sign up to a newsletter where we always share agency tips as well at the Agency Collective. And of course, if you're thinking about, if you listen to this and you go, do you know what, I think it'd be really good to have other agency owners just to be there in those tough moments, when I just need the support, or even in those moments when things are going well and you just want to make sure that you're prepared for the next steps, and you want to speak to someone who's slightly ahead of you, then yeah, join an agency collective. You know, we're the best peer support community for agency owners.
Awesome. Absolute pleasure, Dan. Thank you so much for being on Agency Life. I'll see you, everyone. Take care. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, everyone, for your attention as well. Thank you.